everyone, and welcome to Unique Peace. I am Janice. I'm an intuitive medium and Reiki Master Teacher here on Long Island. And today I am so honored and excited to be talking to Sylvia Solit. She is a CFA. She is a shamanically trained indigenous healer, and she's going to talk to us about the blending and bridging of those two worlds and how she has made it work. So, everyone, welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you for having me. We could all use a little bit more peace today. So I love
Yeah,
the intention of this podcast.
thank you and welcome. So, Sylvia, you have an interesting background and an interesting story. If you could kind of like walk us how you started in finance and found your way to healing and how you've blended the two beautifully.
Well, I actually did it the other way around, which is unusual. I started in healing and then went to finance the first 10 years of my career after I graduated from university were completely dedicated to healing and awakening. I was driven by this question, what does it mean to wake up in a human lifetime? And can an ordinary girl like myself wake up? Or is it something that's only reserved for Siddhartha and Jesus and these sort of great masters of the past? Like, what about me? And that question really drove me throughout my entire 20s. I started with two other co founders a school of healing arts in South America, which is called the Oasis Institute. It still exists today. And we were bringing everything from Esalen body work to, holotropic breath work to, Gestalt therapy to South America. But the core teaching or the core transmission that we were really curious about as a team that we really wanted to bring to the school was non-dual consciousness. So we were all students of Ramana Maharshi and Advaita Vedanta and that lineage, which is a lineage of pure self-inquiry. So asking yourself the question, who am I? And what is the purpose of my human lifetime? So the entire first 10 years of my life were really dedicated to this question of awakening and healing. And by the time I hit the end of my 20s, I had had some awakening experiences. And I had also determined, at least for myself, that what healing is knowing that you're not separate from the divine. Like that is the healing, is the reunification with this mystery. You can call it God, mystery, divine consciousness, and that all other healing is really secondary. It's nice to have, but it's not need to have. So maybe the body heals, maybe it doesn't. I mean, eventually the body's going to die. So, like, by default, it is a secondary form of healing. The primary healing is who are you before death and after death. That is healing. And so I feel like I found a lot of what I was looking for during that time in my life. At the end of my 20s, I sold my part of the school and I moved back to the US, and I was really asking myself what would the next chapter be like professionally, and I thought I would continue in the healing arts. But during that period of sabbatical, I started to get what I would call downloads, maybe some of the first downloads of my life. And those downloads were along the lines of it would be great if you could learn how to work with money, which was like so profoundly absurd at the time because I knew nothing about money. I mean, sure, I had like theoretically been an entrepreneur, and sure, I theoretically had like a little bit of cash in the bank. I still didn't understand anything about investing. And I found investing intimidating to say the least. But there was such a clear directive. And I think that that directive was sort of guiding me towards this place where we are today, where if our money cannot wake up or if the capital cannot become more conscious, if there's always this divide between the power of money and the power of awakening, we're not going to progress as a human race as quickly as we can if we can start to really integrate awakening with things like power and money. So that's sort of how the journey went.
Beautiful. That is not what one would expect. You would expect the other one, like people leaving the high powered jobs and discovering healing, and you found a way to reverse it, and you found a way to bridge it. So you talk about that for a minute on how you bridge that, because there's so many entrepreneurs out there who are spiritual and have the thought process of you can't be spiritual and abundant. You can't be spiritual and wealthy. But for me, I'm shaking up a little bit and waking up a little bit to the fact that no, that's not necessarily true.
It's it's not true, but it's also not easy.
Yes.
Money is very conditioned in our society. It carries quite a bit of shadow energy for all of us. It's where we place most of our fears, our self-doubt, our worthlessness are all placed in the realm of money. I also always like to bring attention to the fact that there are greater social forces at play. So you may find yourself in a socially disadvantaged group, you know, like you may not be in the primary paradigm of power in the country that you live in. And so even if you have a profoundly abundant mindset, you may still be limited by some of these social factors. Right. So I think that's the complexity that we're talking about. But within that complexity, it still is a beautiful question, which is you as an individual, where can you do this inner work of really looking at some of the conditioning that you have around money? And if you investigate those beliefs, can you perhaps transform some of them into the abundance mindset? But for me, the abundance mindset is not about creating posters with pictures of yachts and fancy houses on it. That is still a form of the scarcity mindset. It still is, I will feel safe and secure when I have all of the material things that society tells me I should have. What I'm talking about is the mindset of what it feels like to know that you actually have enough right now in the present moment, the enoughness. So that is, I have enough, I am enough, it is enough. That enoughness is such a fertile ground for prosperity in a human lifetime. So whether you find yourself eating a tuna sandwich today that you brought from home to your office, even the feeling, that prayer of like, it is enough, this tuna sandwich is enough, is actually a really beautiful prayer. And that's actually for me where the healing around money is to know that we are so profoundly provided for in every moment, regardless of what it may look like to someone else.
I love that. I love that. I think I've heard that in other iterations, but I love how you put that through and add indicated it's a prayer. This is enough. I am enough. I have enough. And we forget that. So thank you very much for that. And as you look back on your story, how has that helped you to come up with your personal definition of peace? And what is your personal definition of peace?
When you ask me the question, I come completely into the present moment, because what peace is I can't give you what I thought peace was yesterday. It's what is peace in this moment. And what comes to me as peace in this moment is the capacity to accept reality exactly as it is in this moment without needing anything to change or be different. And that's a very profound spiritual practice. I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to want things to be different than they are. And that's a pretty addictive thing in my mind, like it's like I can get agitated pretty quickly. I can say like, well, I really would like it if my ex-husband behaved differently, or I would really like it if this thing with my work was going more smoothly. And so the amount of time that I spend wanting things to be different is still uh, significant. So a lot of my spiritual practice is in pulling those thoughts back to myself, gathering them back to my heart, and that profound reminder that reality is the king. Reality is such a profound transmission, so accepting reality as it is a huge part of what peace means to me.
I would say I agree with that. And it can be very challenging at times to be in the present moment, to be in the now and acknowledge, okay, this is happening right now because it's easy to look back and look forward. It's always hard to be right here, right now. And
Yes.
and it's profound. And on that note, how do you bring that when you're bringing peace into your own life in your own day? Are there any practices that you utilize to help you stay in the moment?
One of the ones I'm working with right now is making sure I don't feel like I'm busy and overwhelmed. And I think people think there's this kind of inevitability to being busy. And there might even be some signaling that we do to each other. It's like, I'm so busy. Like, Harry, I'm good, but I'm so busy right now. I'm just so busy. And it's like, well, what are you actually like? So, like this, I've been working with this for like the past 2 years. I actually was in a really deep plant medicine ceremony in Costa Rica. And in that, I was working with grandmother ayahuasca in Costa Rica. And the grandmother came to me and showed me how busy I was. It was crazy. It was like, I was like, oh my God, like, look at this. It was nuts. I was so busy and I was like exhausted by my own busyness. And then the grandmother said to me, busy doing what?
Oh,
Busy doing what? It was so profound. And I was like,
profound.
I go, whoa, she's right. What am I doing? And it was part of this transmission of like that whatever is worth doing comes from a place of profound peace and consciousness. So by default, that means that if I'm busy and overwhelmed, I'm not in a place of peace. And so how can I make any clear decisions about how to use my energy or where to place my attention when I'm in a busy state of mind? So I've been really trying to like reverse engineer my state of consciousness, and I'm super super cautious right now when I feel like I'm busy or overwhelmed, and in that moment I really do try to stop myself and just like lasso back my energy, like back to back to source.
Right. Not spreading, well, we all want to expand, but not spreading ourselves too thin, as they say. Take a little bit of that back. I love that. And you mentioned ayahuasca. And I've had several fellow practitioners and healers speak of the psychedelics and the plant medicine and having profound experiences like that. And that is like that's the best question. Busy doing what? It's like, have you had other experiences like that where you've had those profound experiences or been taken on a journey that has helped you on your journey to peace?
And countless, because I've had countless experiences with plant medicine that have helped me to progress in my level of consciousness. And that's, I don't believe that they're the only tool. Obviously, there's many, many other tools that are consciousness enhancing. I would even say that in some ways I did not even chase plant medicine as my primary tool. I feel like it chased me. I felt like there's a kind of almost choicelessness about how deeply plant medicine engaged me as its servant. So there's been countless moments where I've really followed vision or guidance in my life as to, who to surround myself with, what to do, what kind of work to engage in. And I would share maybe one story that, like I said, there's countless stories that come to mind in terms of how plant medicine have helped me to guide my life. But there's one in particular that was really powerful. And that is about 10 years ago, when I started studying with a particular tribe in Colombia. I would have a repeated vision that looked like a pattern. It looked like the grain of wood or a feather, and I could never get beyond that pattern, no matter how much I sat with it in ceremony, and it appeared to me multiple times. I could never see beyond it. And I actually had a kind of superstition that maybe beyond it was some kind of traumatic memory that I had repressed. Like that's how repetitive and insistent it was. Um, and about 2 years ago, that finally that pattern opened itself to me. And what it was the crown of my grandmother who had since passed away. And she was kind of presiding over this like profound court of atonement in the astral realm, and like this sort of queen. And when I saw the pattern open, um, she she said to me, she said, you know, daughter, I haven't been able to give you any direct guidance until now because you didn't have enough discernment. You think everything is good, and you were just like, they're like, all is good, everything is light. And she said, if I had actually given you any wisdom, it would have just poured right through you like a colander with water. And you're starting to have enough discernment now that I can begin to be a real guide for you. So, you know, from this moment, if you want to know if something is worth your time or your attention, just you can call on me and I'm going to give you the guidance. And that, I know that sounds like completely weird, but there the universe is kind of weird. And there there are great there are great mysteries. There are great mysteries out there. And so I actually I'm not wearing it right now, but I usually now wear a pearl around my neck because my grandmother's name was Pearl in Persian. And that's to remind me to always check beyond my own individual consciousness and to really listen to the guidance. You can call it spirit, ancestor, whatever you want. What should I be paying attention to and what matters? That can come from a collective wisdom, not just from myself.
That is very profound, and it's not weird to me. And it might seem weird to people just joining us. However, we are given so many gifts by the universe, and sometimes they don't make sense until they make sense. I mean, that I've taught my son that too. He's coming into his own gifts recently, and he's like, I'm freaked out by this, and I tell him the time is right. It's like if they're starting to show you and they're starting to come through, then the time is right. And
So your son is beginning to open up to intuitive gifts.
yes, he was always even when he was younger. But I understand the closing off because I did that when I myself when I was younger. But now he comes up to me and he's like, I this happened 3 days ago. Why is it happening now? And I have to explain deja vu and the dreams, and it's profound because of the guidance that I and teachings I have gone through. I can now share that with somebody from like when I started, but now I can help guide through. First, I didn't have that guidance. I don't know about you, but
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, my grandmother was quite quite the phenomenon when she was still alive, but I didn't actually learn directly from her because when she was still alive, in some ways I kind of was still pushing it away. Um, you know, I thought she was a little bit weird. And and now I wonder, you know, what I missed by not actually tapping into her guidance when she was more available to give it to me. So it's great that your son is asking you for guidance today.
and that's one of the ways that I try and help bring peace to younger people. And you know, you're not alone. You may feel alone. You may feel a little weird. You may feel odd. And in adolescence, it's very hard because we live in this 3D world and all we want to do is fit in. So you don't want to be different. And I never fit in, so to speak. Speak. I don't know about you, but I always felt different, but I didn't feel like I didn't belong to any set group, and I believe that helps a lot. But it also helps in letting kids know that they're not alone. So, how are some of
Mhm.
the ways that you help bring peace to others?
Well, I want to just respond to the question of fitting in as a young person because you mentioned that. So if we have young people in the audience, I'm just going to join in here. I didn't fit in either. So, so, you know, congratulations if you don't fit in. That's a good sign. And um, so the second question was, how do I help to bring peace? And I would say that the first thing that comes to mind, I just hesitated because somebody in my family just walked by this room and it distracted me for a moment, but it actually was a perfect distraction because the most important place to bring peace is to the family. And that's been a big shift in my priorities, my consciousness, past couple of years, is realizing how important the family actually is in terms of where we do our work as light workers and peacemakers. So I've worked, I've done healing work with people all around the world, with vets and CEOs and leaders and luminaries and celebrities and all kinds of people. And that's wonderful. And I hope that I'm lucky enough to continue to do that kind of healing work until the end of my days. But I have really started to understand that whatever we call family, whether it's one child, two children, husband, wife, partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, friends, whatever family is, mother, father, whatever it is, like do the work there first. Because I've begun to see that the family and our connectivity to one another, especially in the age of AI, is incredibly vital to our mental health and our well-being. So for me, I'm really concentrated now on how are my relationships in my immediate family? Are they in peace? And if they're not, what what work can I do inside of myself to bring deeper peace to those relationships? And a lot of that is just about being self honest and self aware.
And how does that translate? You have a child or children of your own, and for everyone out there who has siblings, and the fun part of having siblings is you try and kill each other when you're younger. How do you kind of like separate and bring peace into that aspect of raising kids?
So you're saying, like, in terms of siblings?
About siblings, I mean, I know when I was younger, I'm the oldest. So I was always in charge, so to speak, but you butt up against the personalities. You learn how to navigate. When you have siblings, you learn how to navigate relationships differently. And I feel that um, you gain a lot of empathy, but at the same time, as a parent now, and you take that relationship of how did I behave with my siblings, and how would I like to help my children to understand differently or better.
Well, what I would offer is just from my own practice that I've become increasingly aware that that my consciousness is the soup that my children are marinating in. So it's like the
Mhm.
most important thing is the quality of my consciousness. So I'm very focused on working on any areas where I have triggers from unresolved things in my past. Just the primary thing is, am I triggered? If I am triggered, I am, you know, I always say, like, I'm the black belt, like the kids are the white belt, I'm the black belt. So, and I also always believe that in any environment, the highest consciousness always is in command. So I experience that a lot when I'm doing healing work. If I'm in a healing ceremony, it's just inevitable that, like, the ceremony will move in the direction of the highest consciousness in the room. Um, but I'm mature enough to know if that's not me in the moment, right? So, like, I recently worked with someone who is incredibly awake being and also a mathematical genius, and I wasn't gonna guide her the same way I would guide someone else when she was highly evolved. So that, it's that humility, the highest consciousness is always where the energy is going to accrue in any setting, which includes the setting of the family. So as the mother, um, if I'm triggered, then I'm not in my most conscious state. So the first thing that I'm always doing is trying to examine any place where I'm triggered and doing that work, whether it's with my therapist or in any other kind of healing modality, so that my consciousness is transmitting peace into the family vibrational field to the brothers, right? And so the one thing that I think I model the most for my sons is kindness. And I think I'm a very fierce model of kindness. I think I may have nailed it in this lifetime. And so what that means is that I'm modeling that through my own consciousness to my sons so that they will be kind to each other.
That is, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that is a nice reminder to all the parents out there that it kind of, it begins with you, but it will emanate out is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you can't fake it. You can't be like, I'm going to teach my two sons to like be, kind to each other and compassionate and support one another. But I'm actually in my own consciousness quite competitive and mean. It's just not going to work. Like, like no matter what words come out of your mouth, they're actually learning from your consciousness. That's what children learn from. So even if you say like, "Oh, I want my kid to stay off screens." Okay, great. Then you stay off screens. Like the responsibility is here primarily. We are the black belt in the family. The children are the white belts.
I love that. I love that. And is there an example you can possibly share with anybody in the work environment? Because that's also can be very triggering and a source of stress for many. I mean, it was for me many years ago, and the universe taught me a very valuable lesson, and I've taken that lesson very seriously. But how would you approach bringing peace into the working environment?
So that's a hard question because it's broad, and I would really want to I don't want to hesitate to like move into like spiritual platitudes and like, well, just be present with your coworkers. Like not every work environment is as conducive to awakening and consciousness as others.
Right.
So somebody who is, for example, working in an ER, in a hospital in the inner city, that is a very different environment and a different challenge to bring peace into than an office environment. So I don't know if I could give a general answer to that, but I think that work is, it's one of the hardest. Some people are just born with some kind of like extraordinary gift where like their work just flows out of them easily and it produces, abundance and it's like all systems go. That's like the minority of people. Like the most of us, work is one of the primary areas where we're having our spiritual growth. So what I would say is like one is just to be, connected to the premise or the understanding that we are here to work. That work is not a burden or this horrible obligation that you should be evolving yourself out of. It's like, I don't think that the goal is like, let me make enough money so I don't have to work. I think work is sacred. And my prayer is more along the lines of I hope I can have work that's relevant and helpful to humanity until I'm really old. Like there's some people that I really admire in their 80s that are still out there like contributing. And that's my goal is to find the kind of work that I can do until my 80s. Um, so more than like what are the tricks for a work environment, because I think that gets too broad. I would just encourage everyone hearing this to, if you can hold your work as part of the sacred curriculum of your soul's growth,
I
no
love
matter who you are and where you're working.
I love that approach very, very much. It's like, and it's a contribution, and if so, that is beautiful. And one of the questions I really love to ask is, what's in your toolbox? So we've touched on being conscious and being the black belt in the family. How are you like conscious in like the black belt of the boardroom? If things kind of get stressful and you're dealing with a lot of personalities, but we also know that in that environment, the only person we can control is ourselves. So, like, what can we remind ourselves to do in situations like that?
So there's a toolkit that I would say is a pretty consistent toolkit for me. I call them sort of the four um, kind of like hacks, four spiritual hacks, or
Mm.
four precepts that we can carry with us into any situation. So the first is stillness. And so, what does it mean to cultivate and curate stillness inside yourself? So, stillness is a quality of consciousness. And in many ways, stillness is sort of home base for consciousness. And what I mean by that is like when we follow the breath deeply, or any kind of meditative practice that we have that is a practice of stillness. So the still point is your deepest place of consciousness. So when we curate and cultivate stillness, inner stillness inside of ourselves, that becomes a quality of consciousness, which is a more reliable decision maker. It's also a more reliable pattern recognizer and seer. So the first precept is, to cultivate stillness, even in the boardroom. And then the second is um, forgiveness. So stillness is kind of home base. And then forgiveness is the way that we widen our aperture and broaden our consciousness to expand to include other people. So the practice of forgiveness is important, not just in personal relationships, but also in business relationships. Because if you want to see where people are going to be sort of their worst selves, a lot of times it's in the world of business, because people can get very primal and quite competitive in the world of business. And so I just love Ho'oponopono as a practice. So bring Ho'oponopono into even the boardroom when you see people behaving in ways that are not entirely conscious. So forgiveness adds this sort of breadth and width to our consciousness in business. And then the next, of course, is gratitude. So the practice of gratitude is like adding octane. It's an amplifier of consciousness. It helps consciousness to accelerate more quickly. So if you're in even in a business situation, even like adding gratitude into your decision making and into your day-to-day work um, helps the consciousness to evolve and move more quickly. So I think of gratitude as like gas in the tank. Um, and then the fourth is prayer. So prayer is the fourth sort of precept, because it's like it's an alchemizer, because as we speak, the we create our reality through our words. That's what abracadabra actually means, is I speak and it creates reality. So adding an element of prayer into the workplace is actually really powerful. And so the prayer can be as simple as, before you turn on your laptop and before you start your work days. So just say a simple prayer of like whatever your intention is for that day, whatever it is you hope to manifest and whatever you hope to grow, just add some prayer into it. So prayer is a great activator. So in all circumstances, whether it's personal or business, stillness, forgiveness, gratitude, prayer, those are the four super tools.
Thank you. And those are beautiful reminders because some people might know of one or two, and you bring them all together nicely. Thank you. And shifting over to more of the shamanic healing energies and work that you do, how are some of the ways you work with others, and how can people find and work with you?
Well, most of the ways people can engage with me is through my newsletter, or I have a book that's going to come out in June of 26. So you can go to thesylvia.com, subscribe to my newsletter, and it's really as simple as if you go onto my website, you can send me a question. I answer all of the questions through intuitive vision. Doesn't cost anything to ask me a question. It's completely anonymous. And then I publish the answers again anonymously. So none of your personal details are revealed. But I do publish those for the benefit of the community so we can all learn from each other. So that's as simple as it is. Send me a question, read my newsletter. That's the primary way that people can work with me right now.
Beautiful. And are there any pearls of wisdom that you would like to share regarding peace overall for the collective?
Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. It's a crowded, noisy moment in the universe. There is a quickening that is happening. I do believe that AI is not something to be afraid of. I believe that we will become more conscious as AI helps us to outsource a lot of our mind activity. And we'll realize maybe we've over indexed on the mind and we'll start to reach beyond the intellect of the mind because AI is going to be smarter than us if like tomorrow, like immediately, and more capable of most of our intellectual tasks like immediately. So instead of being afraid of that, I think that we're all going to be able to find peace in saying what is beyond that only humans can be, because only the human can be creative, imaginative. We are the stewards of the planet, of the earth. And so, to the extent that we can all move into these, what I call conscious creative states, I believe that is the pathway to peace.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to share as we?
I just wanted to say I would really love to learn more about your work and how you work with people as an intuitive. I think it's such a rare gift, and to find an intuitive who has integrity and is trustworthy, true visionary, something I'm really curious about. I've been studying to the extent that I'm able, because there's not that much information available on the Delphi, but I've been really trying to understand who the Delphi were, and the last sort of culture we had of the female oracle is the Delphi, and they were, offering their visions for 2,000 uninterrupted years before a Christian emperor stepped in and shut them down and said, "Enough with this paganism." He probably wanted to like consolidate his tax base and get everybody tithing towards the church, and so he was the one who shut the Delphi down. And I always find it really inspiring when I meet someone like yourself who's resurrecting these lost arts of being a visionary.
Thank you. For me, it was very young. I think it was when I lost my dad at 2 that things like shifted, and I've always known things and I couldn't explain why. And as I got older, I had that period of adolescence where I knew things but didn't say anything. And then I got into that was into my 20s, and then I found a safe space where I could share with my friends. They didn't understand what was going on, but they were like, "Oh wow, you're on point. Oh wow, you're on point." I knew like when they would be moving. I knew if they'd get the job or not. I knew. I actually had a dream where I did, and this is funny because this is kind of what led my son to come to me. Is I had a dream of my friend's apartment without ever being in it, and I knew the exact layout.
Mhm.
So I kind of freaked her out, and then I went over, and I'm like, I have to go to the bathroom, and she looks at me, and she goes, "Well, you apparently know where it is." So, but I didn't really know how to utilize it until I came across a good dear teacher and mentor who recently passed away, Pat Longo. But she really taught us all to trust what God, universe, source, what have you, presents to us, and know that it wouldn't be presented to you if you weren't supposed to share it.
Mhm. 100%. Yeah, I mean, I feel more peaceful just talking to you. I'm definitely booking a session with you, so
Thank you.
No, I'm not even kidding.
You.
I love to work with people that are profoundly intuitive, because I feel like you can give. It's not that we're supposed to know everything that's going to happen, but it's important to know where we are ourselves having holding these sort of self-limiting beliefs or these places where we're not fulfilling our potential. And I'm the least intuitive for myself. So I actually am quite intuitive for other people, but when it comes to myself, forget about it. Like all bets are off. Zero.
That's actually not uncommon. That was one thing she did tell us. She goes, follow your intuition. But if you have any questions, we have our network to reach out to. And you might be able to get better insight from each other. Because I was like, well, what if I make the wrong turn? And she's like, take a breath. Like you said, you're not supposed to know everything for yourself. Maybe you're being guided to, like, I was guided to the right attorney when I was going through a very bad divorce, and I was going to do it myself. And I was then guided to the right person to help me and walk me through everything. Meeting you, I believe that you will be able to help me because I'm interested in what you're doing when it comes to the business end of things. And as I'm learning more about you, and I was in preparing for our interview, I was like, I want to work with you. I've been so excited for the last week to talk to you. Not,
Yay.
I wasn't containing any of my excitement. People are like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I'm fine. I get to talk to Sylvia." I was like, she's like,
Yay.
met her before? It's like, no, but something tells me this is who I need to connect with.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. I look forward to the deepening of our connection.
And so, and it's like I always tell the truth, and I've learned how to deliver it tactfully. I used to just tell the truth. Now I'm given words that are sometimes they need to be a little bit kinder, and sometimes they need to be a little bit more blunt. But I've learned the tact of never lie, but find a way to get the message through.
Mm, beautiful. Well, thank you, Janice.
Thank you, Sylvia. And I thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm going to put you in the green room. I'll be right back. Thank you, Sylvia, for joining us today. Thank you for everyone tuning in today. I hope that you learn a little bit more about how to bring peace into your life and your family. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.